Good evening. I would like to call to order the Tuesday, March 14th, 2023 meeting of the Housing and Redevelopment Authority. Let it be noted that a quorum is present. Our first order of business is approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Madam Chair, I would vote to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it has been moved by Commissioner Wooten, Commissioner Wooten, with a second by Commissioner Mueller to approve tonight's agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The agenda has been passed, and we will move on to item number 3, approval of the minutes of February 28, 2023. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of February 28, 2023?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved by Commissioner Doblinger with a second by Commissioner Mueller to approve the amendment, to approve the minutes of February 28th, 2023. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Sorry, I'm counting and I'm going. 6-0. Thank you. Now we are moving on to organizational business, 4.1, HRA bylaws. May we have the staff report, please?
Thank you, Chair Lewis. Erica Coleman, HRA Administrator. Before you, in the packet, is a proposal for consideration and vote to amend the bylaws. We are requesting amendment of the bylaws due to the fact that in 2022, we were successful in passing state legislation to increase the number of HRA commissioners from 5 to 7. And second of all, also in the 2022 legislation, Article 3, Section J needs to be updated to change the required number of votes from 3 commissioners to a majority of commissioners in office. When the current bylaws were drafted, there were 5 commissioners, so therefore 3 commissioners would have been a majority. So we are proposing changing that language to reflect the board. And then lastly, in alignment with the desired practices of the City of Bloomington and the HRA and our contract for staff services with the City of Bloomington, an amendment is recommended in Article 4, Section E, Section 3, to change the requirement that all checks be signed by the administrator and the chair to the checks being signed by the administrator and the chief financial officer of the HRA. Since the chair is elected annually and frequently changes, potentially, we would that would result in administrative burden. And so I am open for any discussion or any questions, and I'd be looking for a motion to approve the attached resolution.
Are there any questions for Administrator Coleman? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the resolution approving amending bylaws for the HRA?
So moved.
Second. All right. It has been moved by Commissioner Martin with a second by Commissioner Carter to approve the resolution approving amended bylaws for the HRA. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion passes 6-0. Thank you. That was nice and quick. All right. We're moving on to new business. And item 5.1, 98th Street Study Update. May we have the staff report, please?
Chairman Lewis, Commissioners, Kirk Roberts, Traffic and Transportation Engineer for the City of Bloomington.
Here to talk to you tonight about the 98th Street study. I'm here on behalf of the city engineer Julie Long, Public Works Director Carl Keel, and I'm accompanied by Brian Nemeth with Bolton and Mink Consulting, who helped us with this study. The 98th Street study. This slide is oriented with north at the top. The portion of the study we're looking at is from James Avenue, which is basically the traffic signal just off of City Hall here, all the way over to Lyndale Avenue across the 35W. It's a key interchange in the city from a transportation perspective, and especially as it relates to land use. And more recently, it's also become a very important hub for transit in the city as well. Back in the 90s, a concept was developed for the interchange that was adopted by MnDOT, Hennepin County, and the city of Bloomington, and that's the design that you see in front of you. A couple things to note: the ramps on the upper left have been constructed. The ramps on the lower right were planned for the future. And so with this plan adopted, the city, state, and Met Council proceeded to start acquiring parcels to build the rest of those ramps. And that's been the long-term standing plan. In the meantime, Metro Transit decided to use some of those vacant lots, and they built a transit station to serve the public. That has now become a very key transit station in the city. Right atop of where the future ramps were supposed to go, were in the original plan. In addition to being one of two stops in the city for the Orange Line, the transit station also serves 98th Street, transfers to Normandale Community College. It serves most of Old Shakopee Road. It serves Portland, Nicollet, Lyndale, not Portland, Old Shakopee Road all the way up to the Mall of America. So it is a really key transportation hub for the city. It's one of two major regional transit stations, the other being the Mall of America. So whatever ideas they had in the 90s, an interchange design that knocks out a very successful transit hub is not going to be seen as favorable to the city. And so we're taking a look at the area, and it's not just that transit hub as a whole, but there's an interest also in the area above the transit station. Met Council, Met Transit specifically, is interested in supporting transit-oriented development. And this is a key site. And transit-oriented development in this case translates into perhaps housing options built above the transit station with some limited retail, but housing. And this could be for populations that are somewhat dependent on transit, that don't use autos for their daily transportation due to income or other issues. And so they are very dependent on transit. Metro Transit wants to serve that population in terms of getting them around, and so they're interested in that transit-oriented development. The Bloomington HRA, from a housing perspective, is interested in serving that population, and I'm interested in helping. So that's another issue that we're looking at with this study. And then from a land use perspective, the area has changed drastically since the 90s as well. Right here in the midst of all this is the Lyndale retrofit, which envisions a much different model for development along this corridor than was thought about in the 1990s. Development is expected to go upwards in a more dense model along Lyndale Avenue, providing housing options for people who are looking for transportation options for transit, for multimodal accommodations versus just the single passenger vehicle as their main means of transportation. And so while that adds fewer trips than a traditional development, it still adds trips. And how can this interchange accommodate that sort of growth that's expected to occur? So it's become quite a key focal point. We've launched a study The overall goals, big picture, are just to see if we can look at a plan that preserves and enhances the transit station, identify near-term, long-term changes to improve conditions for motorized users. If you spent any time out there, it's a really wonderful area of the city. But if you're doing that on foot or by bike, it's not the friendliest place to be. Can we fix that? Can we make some changes that are going to help all users get around, improve safety? And then as part of our process, we wanted to really make sure we emphasized our engagement, that we're talking to people who live and work and move about this area every day. And so that was a key focus of the study. So in summary, and Brian's going to talk about the details, but in summary, we have come up with design alternatives that we believe do all that. So with that in mind, Brian Nemeth is here to present the study process so far and our next steps moving forward.
Thank you, Kirk. Thank you, Commissioners. Let's see if I can get the next through here. So part of the study here, we have 3 project partners, Bolton & Menk, Alliant, and Neo Partners. And again, a lot of stakeholders in this project: Minnesota Department of Transportation, Metropolitan Council, Metro Transit, City of Bloomington, MnDOT, Hennepin County, pretty much everybody. This corridor has been prevalent with a lot of pedestrian and bicyclist crashes that we've seen along the corridor in the last 10 years. Of note here is the 4 bicycle crashes that have occurred at DuPont Avenue. Those have occurred usually with a eastbound vehicle with a pedestrian crossing or bicyclist crossing the south crosswalk. And that's, again, the same thing was a northbound vehicle, again, with that same crosswalk. So as people are trying to make those right turns, sometimes they aren't looking, either have a green light or are looking left and aren't seeing those vehicles that are coming, pedestrians are coming. The initial study started off with some initial intersection concepts. 3 areas of consideration that we included was kind of the west end near Old Shakopee Road and City Hall, the center interchange area, and then over at Lyndale Avenue. Just wanted to indicate that there's been a lot of intersection concepts, way more than even we have shown on here. So kind of going through that. Engagement activities to date, we have had some videos, some social media flyers out to the public. Website Let's Talk Bloomington has been a substantial portion of our public involvement and actually a lot of engagement on that. We also had an open house in December, and prior to that we actually had some pre-open house activities with some community groups and also some pop-up events at the farmers market and also at the Metro Transit Station. So as part of these engagement activities was first to really, find out what the public likes about the corridor, what they don't like about the corridor, where they see issues, where they see concerns, and what they would like to see in the future. As we moved through that, as we moved into the open house in December, we did present all of these intersection alternatives. We had an online comment period of about 4 weeks. We've had really tremendous engagement. About 750 people have visited the website. 90 people have engaged, providing comments either on the website or in person. Of note from those public comments, kind of broke it out into about 9 primary identification of concerns or issues that the public had. One was, does that work? If I can do it. Was looking at adding some kind of a signalized crossing between James Avenue and DuPont. Between James and DuPont right now, there's not any signalized crossings. It is very difficult to cross that corridor, and there are multiple bus stops along both sides of the roadway. So getting from one side to the other, and multiple destinations. Another one was to eliminate that northbound merge. So currently on Old Shakopee Road, both lanes go down to 1 before it takes this wide, sweeping, free right turn at high rate of speed, and then weaving across, especially if you need to go northbound on 35W, you're having to weave across all those lanes because nobody's really stopping for you. So looking at that, we also, increasing pedestrian and bicyclist space. I think with the goals that we saw was really trying to, turn this transit station area into a connection that not only vehicles can get to and not only transit can get to, but also providing that space for pedestrians and bicyclists. And we heard from quite a few bicyclists and pedestrians that use this corridor on a daily basis and people that do walk to that transit station and making it more livable for them. Another big thing was eliminating the channelized right turn off the ramp. Again, a high-speed right turn. People make that, people tend to use that right turn and not really look at where they're going. And then also improving the pedestrian bicyclist vehicle conflicts at those right, kind of like free rights, I guess, out near the interchange to get onto the freeway. It could go southbound, really at high speeds today. And then at Lyndale Avenue, identified 3 major concerns there. Eliminating, again, those channelized right turns. I don't think any pedestrian really loves going across those. Shorten the pedestrian crossings. It's a wide roadway, both east-west and north-south. So any opportunities we have to shorten the crossing distance would be an improvement. And then making sure that anything, if we do try to eliminate some lanes, can we maintain capacity and mobility for vehicle traffic? And that was especially important. Metro Transit had indicated, they run a lot of buses through all different directions, all 4 legs of that intersection. They want to make sure that they can operate their buses in a safe manner too. With our study, we are looking at not only existing traffic, we are considering future traffic. One of the other things we're looking at is potential development or redevelopment in coordination with the Lyndale retrofit plan, really matching into that area on the northwest corner of Lyndale Avenue, between 35W and Lyndale Avenue, looking at potential for maintaining some commercial space there, maybe more intense than it is today a little bit, and then also including some extra housing in that area. Again, in the transit station, potential for adding additional parking through a parking structure, looking at maybe some ground type commercial, and also some residential apartments. In addition to that, we also looked at, Festival Foods parking lot out there is a big sea of pavement. It's not fully utilized on a regular basis. Is there an opportunity to potentially add some other retail or commercial, apartments in that area? So just making sure that anything we're looking at not only works for today's traffic, but also looking at, this midterm of this redevelopment. And then we're also considering long-term is a regional growth as traffic increases on 35W, as there are other redevelopment throughout the entire city beyond just this area, is looking at making sure it works for that traffic too. Through that, we had those initial about 5 different concepts for each intersection, developed into 2 primary concepts at each intersection location. So concept 1, we have different areas. So we have 2 different options at Old Shakopee Road. We'll have 2 different options at the DuPont Avenue intersection. We're looking at 2 different concepts here at the bridge. I'm not going to go into those into detail, but if you do want to go and ask questions on those, I can go through them later. And then again, concept 2, again, we'll bring this forward with the project management team that we have. Hennepin County still needs to go through it and developing a preferred alternative. And as a note on that, those midterm ones, that's really with that redevelopment, is maintaining the existing bridge that crosses 35W. Currently, MnDOT has indicated that that bridge has a current life of over 20 years, 20 to 30 years of the current bridge, but recognizing that this bridge will eventually need to be replaced. So what is the long-term plan for this corridor when that bridge is replaced? So we don't want to build anything in the shorter term that is not going to work with that bridge, an expanded bridge. And it's also making sure that that 1990s plan that Metropolitan Council and MnDOT and Hennepin County and the City of Bloomington agreed to, that we can provide something that would provide the same capacity improvements that what they had planned for. And so what we're seeing right now is just adding an additional eastbound left turn lane would provide that additional capacity that those other jurisdictions are looking for, but then also gives the opportunity to expand the pedestrian and bicyclist facilities across there. If you notice today, the south side has about a 10-foot sidewalk, but the north side only has about a 5-foot sidewalk and is very uncomfortable to be walking, either realistically on either one, but much more comfortable on the south side than it is in the north, but could, through this project, expand those facilities. Next steps, we do have a public agency review working out with Hennepin County, get it through all their departments, make sure that they're in agreement to this plan. They determined a preferred concept with them, and then refining that preferred concept if they have minor changes to that. If they want to see something a little bit different, we'll be refining that concept. And then we'll present the final concept to the public, and then we'll also bring the final study and concepts to the HRA and City Council this summer. And in summary, we do have all the concepts we do have, but our preferred concepts, they achieve the study goal and project goals. They provide a long-term plan for the interchange. They preserve and enhance the transit station that is currently there. Maintain vehicular mobility, including transit. That was very important to this project. Enhancing non-motorized traffic mobility, so providing those extra facilities across the entire corridor that are currently not there today. And improving safety for all users. That includes, pedestrians, bicyclists, anybody wheelchair users, people that are visually impaired, transit users and vehicles. And then also allowing for traffic growth due to development and redevelopment in the area. And then eventually replace that 98th Street Bridge over I-35W will be something that's anticipated to need in the future eventually. So with that, I am open to any questions, and I can go back to any of the concepts if you do want to go in a little more detail in those different concepts.
All right, thank you. I'll now open it for questions. Are there any questions? Yes.
Can we go back to
Commissioner Wooten.
Can we go back to the discussion of the interaction with groups involvement?
Yes. I can go, I can probably start here. I can probably go over here a little bit.
So of the 90 people that were engaged, do you have an idea or a breakout of what the demographics was there? Ethnicity, disability, individuals that are senior age?
Not specifically on the website platform. We do not. We do know from some of the community engagement groups, we did have a pretty a good variability in who was attending those, but those were more specifically focused type groups. We had, Kirk, if you remember which groups those were.
Chairman Lewis, Commissioner Wooten, we had some specific focus groups with elderly communities in the area. We reached out to the high school and we were able to speak with some minority interest groups. And so there were some very specific conversations with the specific groups, of which I don't have a list, but it was a fairly comprehensive effort to do that. One of our community outreach and engagement staff helped us with that and did a very good job. So I hope that addresses your question.
Okay.
Are there any further questions? Yes, Commissioner Mueller.
I have a question when you're talking about the Festival Foods parking area there. I noticed that there isn't a lot of green space. So when you're looking at developing something, is there going to be some green space added in there? Yeah, because you can. I mean, it's all surface. It's all, and so. Just wondering if you're building housing, if there's any way to incorporate something.
Yeah, not something we look specifically at this study, but I'm sure that could be incorporated in there. We were more interested in how many trips that would produce.
Sure.
Those 80 apartments would be.
Commissioner Mueller, one other thing that I want to point out too, so that the open space would be a negotiation that happened, at the time a development comes up or in conjunction with the city's requirements for that. One thing I do like about the concepts that we're coming forward with is this is a rare case at Lindale and some of the areas around there where we have more pavement than we need. And so what's going to happen with these projects as Lindale's implemented, we're actually going to be removing lanes, removing pavement, removing the crazy pork chop islands and things like that. And that is open space that's available then for public for who knows what, we'll come up with for that. So the project does fundamentally open up a bit more room for that.
All right. And I will say in projects in the past, that has always been something we've looked at. So it isn't anything that we wouldn't bring up. That's usually what we are looking at green space as well. So, but it really depends on when a project comes forward.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have another question,
Sure do.
Commissioner Wooten?
I guess at some point we'll talk about the percentages of breakdown as we look at these units. What part of those is going to be affordable? And in that discussion of affordable, can we raise the bar in regards to what has normally been done in projects in the past?
Okay, I'm going to open this up to Administrator Coleman.
Thank you, Chair Lewis, Commissioner Wooten, Commissioners. So our Opportunity Housing Ordinance does come into play when there is development of at least 20 units. So all of these proposed redevelopment opportunities are first just staff and our consultants saying this is a great opportunity, but there's not necessarily a developer on board, and this is not city-owned or HRA-owned property. So the Opportunity Housing Ordinance does come into play where a minimum of 9% of the units do need to be affordable at 60% AMI. However, the HRA focuses on deeper affordability. And so that's where the opportunity would come in for the HRA to work with the Port Authority and any potential developers with our Opportunity Housing Ordinance that does have incentives around deeper affordability, but also open space requirements, density bonus, height bonus, different things like that, where we could have the potential to increase that level of deeper affordability as the HRA is focused on 50% AMI or below with a specific focus on 30% AMI. And so all things are able to be discussed and worked through, and a project that would come forward or come to fruition in the years to come would still have to go through those steps here at the city.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Doblinger.
With regard to the changes being made to Lindale 98th intersection there, has there been any talk of like protected bike/walk areas that would be, I frequent that area and there's a lot of people jumping out of the way, so to speak, of traffic and things like that. And protected bike paths and walkways have been successful in other places, and I was wondering if there's any consideration of something like that.
Yeah, I think with any of the alternatives, if we look here on this slide here, we are looking at, eliminating those free rights gives a lot more opportunity to expand those pedestrian and bicyclist facilities. Right now, we're kind of considering more of a multi-use trail with a wider boulevard. Wider boulevard gives a little more space for signs and snow storage and everything, so we can keep that snow off the facilities all winter long, as the kind of the plan. But, it could be expanded out to, separate pedestrian bicyclist facilities if that needs to be looked at in the future. One other thing we are considering is if you run on the east side of Lindale Avenue, south of 98th Street, it runs down to 99th Street there. The trail picks back up again, but there's kind of a missing link in there. So one thing we did, expanded beyond what we're actually showing here on the screen is we did talk about this just the other week about expanding that and providing that last connection in there to make that better for everybody.
Thank you. Are there further, Commissioner Wooten?
Is there a proposed commencement date of when this would start once it goes through all the process?
So in the short term, MnDOT does have a project in 2026 that they're scheduled to start. They're right now it's just a signal project to replace the 2 traffic signals at the interchange. With that, they have indicated that their ADA group and their pedestrian bicyclist group will be getting involved in that as it gets closer to 2026, that there might be an opportunity to look and add in some of these other things. But again, before that group comes on, they're not willing to commit to anything yet. And I know the city's looking at other opportunities here too.
Right. Chairman Lewis, Commissioner Wooten, so this is the plan. This will end up, once the council adopts this, the recommended layout, that will be the approved plan. That gives us then the ability to go ahead and start looking at ways to fund and build the different segments or the whole thing as we're able to do so. And so as Brian mentioned, some of the areas around the interchange, those will probably, because we've done this study and are advancing it, some of those will get picked up by MnDOT in 1 to 2 years. Some of these improvements will take place. Others will have to work with our project partners and go find some funding for some of them. They look kind of simple and small on here, but they would be substantially expensive, and so we would go seek federal funding and everything like that, up to the bridge replacement that could be 20 years out. And so you're looking at a plan that implementation 3 years out up to 25 years out.
Go ahead.
And my reason for asking that was primarily because of that bridge. It being such a major takeout of this. I mean, it's 20 years out as far as life, but based on what I've seen in projects in the past, that's probably a third to 2/3 of the life of the bridge. And at that point, it's like, what's the efficiencies of just taking the bridge out now, if it's part of the plan, versus waiting until we get to 2/3 and actually complete the project, and then we're looking at a bridge replacement in 7 years, which tears the whole area up again.
Yeah, and that's part of the plan, is to make sure that anything we build in the midterm can work with that long-term bridge, so make sure the curb lines, making sure everything, so you're not rebuilding everything over twice. And that's part of it. The bridge is owned by MnDOT, so it's up to them. I mean, ultimately, it's their decision. They may end up doing some rehab. They can do a full replacement within that, a little bit shorter than 20-year time frame. So it'll be more discussion between Hennepin County, city, and of course, and MnDOT.
All right, thank you. Are there any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'd like to thank you for that update. Here again, it's a long-term plan with bits and pieces along the way, but it's exciting just to see it on paper. So thank you very much.
Chair Lewis, just one other note. So we're going to, as Brian mentioned, we're going to develop the recommended concept based on the two that you see and get that out to our partner agencies, build our project partners and some enthusiasm. We will be back to the HRA this summer, and we're going to be asking for a recommendation of approval of that plan and the study overall to the council. So we're going to be asking you to give us a green check mark and advance that issue to the council.
That's good news. Yes, Commissioner Wooten.
Will it come back out to the community at some point in time again for a further review?
That's the next step after we talk to our agency partners. And so starting May, we'll be back out to the community. You're going to see us at the farmers market and probably all over the place. Look at us, give us your comments. And so, yeah, we will do that next. And to your original question as well, we'll have some stats on who we met with and what those conversations were about. So I appreciate that.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item 5.2, 9030 Park Avenue South. May we have the staff report, please?
Thank you, Chair Lewis. On our last meeting on February 28th, the HRA Board did receive an update from West Hennepin Affordable Housing Land Trust, better known as WALT, Executive Director Brenda Lano-Wolke, regarding the Memorandum of Understanding that we have between the HRA and WALT for the HRA-owned property at 9030 Park Avenue South. After the update and through discussion by commissioners, the board did direct staff to draft a letter of support for the single-family, two-family zoning standards proposed amendments as they pertain to the development of affordable new construction homeownership housing at 9030 Park Avenue South. And so in your board packet, which you all have and also is available for the public, is a drafted letter that is to be submitted to the planning manager after HRA board approval. And so I am looking for any questions or comments or edits that you have on that drafted letter before proposing a motion of approval.
Thank you, Administrator Coleman. I will open it up to the commissioners. Are there any suggestions or corrections, or are we comfortable with the memo? Yes, Commissioner Martin. Oh, that was the yes, you are. Okay. That's our official. Yes. All right. Any other questions? It sounds like everyone is happy with it, so I would be looking for a motion to approve the memo to support for single and two-family zoning standards at 9030 Park Avenue South.
So moved.
Second.
Second. It has been moved by Commissioner Martin with a second by Commissioner Wooten to approve the memo of support for single and two-family zoning standards at 9030 Park Avenue South. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. moving on to item 6.1. This is the opportunity for commissioners, if they have any questions or comments that they would like to make. Hearing none, I would be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second? Thank you. It has been moved by Commissioner Doblinger with a second by Commissioner Wooten to adjourn the March 14th, 2023 meeting of the HRA. And all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. We are adjourned.